Hey everyone, Pocky here, and I wanted to do a quick overview of the new patch. It's been out for a few days. It came out on November 1st, and now that we've had a few days to play around with it and stuff, I wanted to let you know what we've seen sort of be good, what interactions exist to take advantage of, and all that sort of stuff. If you guys missed it, we always do a live patch review on our stream, PockyPlays at Twitch. But anyways, let's get into it. So the big thing, obviously we're talking about the Battlegrounds updates for heroes, is the new hero, the Jailer. Now I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think this is actually a pretty cool design. The idea of something scaling up over time and hero powers gradually becoming better is actually a really cool concept. However, it's not crazy strong. It can be playable or even good in the right scenarios with beast or mech comps that sort of end up buffing a unit, even some demons buffing something like a juggler or a key unit that you need to stay alive, something like a deflecto or a cleave, also options. But overall, not super strong. Again, it is just sort of a button for stats hero power. It does seem to make Rakanishu a little bit redundant, so I really don't like that. I still think there's a big issue with too many heroes in the game right now, and without some sort of hero rotation, it does sort of it's not a great feeling that they continue to add new heroes without some pullback or adjustment to that. As for other hero updates, the Khatoon hero power is getting changed so that it upgrades each turn instead of each time you use it. This is a huge buff. Now, one thing to note with Khatoon is the armor tier is not changing, so it's getting a lot stronger with this hero power change, because you now don't need to hero power those early turns. First 3 turns, if you hero power, you're spending 6 gold for plus 6/6 total on units that you're not likely to necessarily keep into the late game. Now you can play like a normal curve, a standard curve, or any variation, even 3-on-3 that wasn't really as available before, and be much stronger throughout the game with this change to the hero power. And the big thing is that it's in the top armor tier, so those quests are going to be easier. Toki is also getting changed. Now, instead of including a minion from a higher tavern tier, it includes 2 minions from the higher tavern tier. This is a huge change, and it really benefits fast leveling Tokis, because you're able to go 4-on-4 or 3-on-3 and stabilize much faster, picking up those 5 or 4 drops. And you're not just buying one, you're getting more consistency in the quality of those higher tier minions by virtue of there being 2. Just on average, you're going to get something better with a selection of 2. But you can also buy both. If both are good units, you can buy both, and oftentimes they are, by virtue of being a higher tavern tier. So big buff for Toki, and I think Toki is pretty good. And Rat King also gets a huge rework. Instead of being plus stats and swapping each turn, now for 2 gold, you're actually discovering a new minion type each turn, and that's really good. It's really good in certain lobbies, specifically lobbies that have a lot of econ. You can stay down on one, almost guaranteed discover a token, and from there it operates a lot like a Scabs, a Yoggers, a Rella in terms of your leveling curve, but you can set up triples really consistently. You can get higher tier minions consistently. You can choose when you're hero powering. And again, just the fact that you're getting a discover for 2 gold throughout the history of Battlegrounds, that has always proven to be a very high quality effect. For our heroes, Brukan, Pyramid, Rat King, Lichbee, Deathwing, Toki, Kurtrus, Tavish, and Onyxia are all getting nerfed armor-wise, and Patrick, Alex, Phelan, Chinvala, Mr. Bigglesworth, and Zephyrus are getting small buffs in armor. Obviously, this does affect quests. Rat King, obviously going to tier 0 is a big change, but if you look at Scabs and comparable heroes, it's probably appropriate for the power level. Toki does also get a small nerf, but again, with the buff to her hero power, that makes complete sense. And then Khatoon, notably absent from any nerfs whatsoever. So Khatoon a huge pickup there. There's also some new quests getting added. So these are the quests that you actually have to complete to get those quest rewards. One is hire an investigator, end your turn with unspent gold 3 times. This is not a great quest because you're limited on the turns that you have to do it. So it can be 3, 4, whatever it is. And floating gold doesn't play into what you want to do most of the time. So it might not seem hard, but the fact that there's a turn requirement means there's a minimum amount of turns it can take to complete, which isn't ideal. Quests that you can complete faster by playing into a certain direction or something like that generally are better. And floating gold not being something you want to do normally is not something you necessarily want to do on a quest either. And so we've seen quests that cause you to deviate from your game plan not be ideal, and this would be one of them in most cases. Crack the case, however, is pretty good. Now, this one is having your friendly minions attack 11 times. As a baseline, this can adjust based on the difficulty, so the number will change, but having your minions attack, and this is pretty cool because it's something you can play into. It's something like summoning, and it's combat oriented, of course, but you can have more summons on board. You can have things like Wind Fury that can help accelerate it. The big thing to remember is that not all your minions on board will necessarily attack. So when you're trying to figure out the number, keep in mind that your minions are also going to get attacked in 2. And so it, roughly going to be half unless you influence the odds in some way. And then the biggest change of this patch, I've been talking about this forever. I am so glad they finally added new quest rewards. I was talking about it for probably at least a month already. That is something that they would need to do to keep the patch, keep the game fresh and prevent it from getting stale. The first one is Blood Goblet. At the end of your turn, give your rightmost minion attack equal to your missing health. This isn't super flashy. It's not really necessarily super strong. It does allow you to buff a lot of attack onto a specific unit. However, you do have to sort of misposition that unit often, putting it at the back of your comp until it gets to the point that you want it, at which point you can move it where you want it to go. Obviously, if you're missing a decent amount of health when you finish it, it's going to be a little bit better, but it's something that if you do naturally get to a lower attack or health total, that attack can be pretty substantial. And this is probably somewhat comparable to Menagerie Mayhem, but maybe better in specific scenarios where you don't want to play Menagerie. And this is relatively easy to complete. This has been hotfixed to be easier to complete already, so it wasn't performing the best. I don't think it's very exciting or necessarily good, so we'll see how that one develops, but pretty interesting. Essence of Xeris is a really interesting one that will probably need to be nerfed at some point, because at this point in time, it is very easy to complete. Personally, I've completed it on turn 4 multiple times, and the ability to get a Xeris every turn for the rest of the game starting on turn 4 is not necessarily consistently good. I mean, it is good, but there's consistency issues, but the ability to hit super early 5 and 6 drops that you just shouldn't have access to at that point in the game is potentially devastating. And so the fact that you can complete those quests very quickly and easily is sort of where the issue lies. And so this is one that'll probably get nerfed, so take advantage of it while you can. Hidden Treasure Vault is a pretty interesting one. At the start of your turn, gain 1 gold, upgrades each turn. So pretty straightforward. The first turn that you complete it, the next turn you have 1 extra gold. The following turn you have 2, 3, so on. This quest is very contingent on you finishing it quickly. If you can finish it turn 5, turn 6, maybe turn 7, it's probably going to be okay. If you finish it later, it's going to have a really low impact because it's not giving you immediate stats on board. You're going to have to contend with other people who have been getting value from quests, either in additional minions, stats on board, anything like that. And that gold, every turn that you don't start the quest, you're not losing just a gold that turn. You're losing a gold every following turn. And so this is a pretty snowbally quest that you really do want to finish early. And if you can't finish it early, maybe it's a pass. Ethereal Evidence is a really interesting one. This is sort of behaving like Panda's hero power in that you get to choose a new quest reward every turn. Now, this does mean that you don't get necessarily consistent value from your quest, but the trade-off is that you get the flexible value and you get to choose quests that will benefit you most in a given moment on a given turn. You can also high roll super strong quests like Staff of Origination for a turn without having to complete Staff of Origination, something like Pilfered Lamps for a turn, or Secret Sin Stone, where you can get that effect for one turn, have a spike turn earlier than you might if you had to complete those specific quests on their own. So you're getting that value, and then you can choose other quests later when they might be more relevant. Volatile Venom is very strong with the right setup. Each of your minions have plus 8/8, and after they attack, they die horribly. Now that just means they die horribly. I guess they die horribly, but it just means they die like any other minion. Little bit of flavor on the text. But having an aura effect of all your minions having plus 8/8 is super huge for anything that summons, because those death rattles, those reborns are also going to get that plus 8/8, and that's a ton of stats if you have a board full of minions like that. Rat Pack would summon 7 9/9s if it died with an open board. Just one Rat Pack on its own, while being a 10/10 on its own. So very strong quest in the right setup. You just need to make sure you play around it. The minions dying when they attack can be played around by putting those higher statted minions in the back, because if they don't attack, they're not going to die, and you can use them to soak up a lot of hits while you get value from your summons on the front end. Our next quest is the Golden Hammer, which is a spellcraft. Make a friendly minion golden until next turn. This is like Reno's hero power every turn. It's not permanent. It only lasts for the one turn, but you can do it during your shop phase as well as combat. So if you want to make something like Hogger or Brand golden while you're in your shop phase, you can do that. And then if you want to, on other turns or even in different games, make something like a Mama Bear or a Manted Queen golden for just one combat, you can do that. It gives you that flexibility. And it also works with things like Orgozoa, where when you make it golden, you get the new spellcraft of the golden unit. So there's a lot of ways to get really great value out of the Golden Hammer. You just need to be creative with how you use it, but it's a very high power quest. The difficulty is sort of in the middle. It's not super hard yet, but it's not an easy quest by any means, because of how powerful it can be. Sinful Medallion is a really fun one. After you play a minion, give 2 other friendly minions of its Tavern tier plus 2/2. This is a really interesting one because you can use it in a lot of cycle-friendly comps, or if you just have a few minions that you want to buff up, like 2 Deflectos, you can just cycle 3 drops when you see them. It pairs really nicely with Theotar, and one of the new minions helps cycle 2s and 1 drops super consistently, especially if like things like elementals are in. If you have Tads into the pool too, you can be cycling Tads and Elementals. Really cool quest. Not too hard to complete either, but you need to make sure that you're focusing those buffs, so try to only have 2 minions of that specific tier. And the last one is Kidnap Sack. Spellcraft, choose a non-golden minion, add it to your hand. Now this is the kicker on this one. It can be in the shop or on your board, so you have total flexibility on what you're adding to hand. You can get a free minion at minimum every turn, which is super strong. If you have a minion, you're prevented from getting yourself board locked unless your board is fully golden, and you can do things like bouncing a Primal Fin, a Tavern Tempest back to your hand, so you can get value every turn from it. And this is a pretty easy quest to complete. This one is really good. If you play it and just experiment with it a little, you'll see the value. Other updates: Find the Murder Weapon has had its baseline completion requirement reduced from 17 to 14. We'll get to that a little bit later, but it's been made easier. That's the quest that requires you to buff minions on your board. Anima Bribe has been removed, So stacking all those stats super easily is not an option anymore. Theotar's Parasol has been returned to the reward pool, so that's +8 health and the stealth. And Stolen Gold is made rarer by 50%. So they actually told us the number, and it's 50% more rare now than it was before. And we have new minions. So Dozy Whelp, our first new minion, a new dragon on tier 1. It's a taunt with 3 health, no attack, but it gains attack when it gets attacked into. So it grows over time. This isn't a super impactful unit. It's an extra taunt, which can be good, especially because they added more taunt stuff to the game. It also adds another dragon for something like your Chrome Wings to grow a little bit faster, or your Red Wolves to have a little bit more impact on tier 1. But overall, not super impactful. Obviously, having a small taunt accessible on tier 1 in the game, along with Imprisoner, adds it as a tech option in certain situations. But nothing too notable there with Dozy Whelp. Patient Scout is a new tier 2 minion. 1 attack, 1 health. When you sell this, discover a tavern tier 1 minion upgrades each turn. This is an insanely strong card. It is so good. It's very cheap. It's a neutral card, so it can buff Theotar. It works for scaling, cycling heroes like Melhouse and Galluix. And obviously the big kicker is it allows you to discover 5, 6 drops if you get it early and keep it on board, so it can upgrade without needing to find triples and stuff like that. And if you triple it, it's going to keep the highest value. So if you've been holding one on board, you don't need to worry about tripling it. It will give you the highest value where it's at when you sell it, and it will restart if you want to keep that triple on board for a couple extra turns. It is super, super, super strong, and I highly encourage you to just work on those situations where you just look at this card and you probably want to buy it, because there's a lot of situations like that. Bristleman's Scrapsmith is another card that's playing around some of this taunt aspects. 4 attack, 4 health. After a friendly taunt minion dies, get a blood gem. So kind of like Gem Splitter, but with taunts dying. Obviously taunts are going to sort of protect it while they die. So you have some nice synergy there. But it doesn't have the same synergy, obviously, with Divine Shields that Gem Splitter did in the past. But a good source of gems and a solid 4/4 3-drop. So if you have a setup for it in the mid game, it can be pretty impactful. Faceless Disciple is a battle cry, is the most notable thing, and it has the highest base stats of any tier 3 minion, being a natural 6/4. It will also allow you to transform a minion into one a tavern tier higher. That can be on your board or in the shop, so you can look for higher tier drops. You can do it without having to buy it if you have a unit that you don't really want to keep on your board, or you can do it in the shop to check if it's something that you'd want. It does work with Bran, so if you use Bran, you can turn a 4-drop into a 6-drop, for example. But again, keep in mind that you have to buy this, play it, and then buy the minion in the shop if you're doing something like that. So it might not be the best value always to use it on things in the shop, but you can use it on board, and it is a strong tempo option just based on raw stats. And of course, an extra battle cry into the pool is pretty impactful for quests, things like Caligos, etc. Another new card is Vigilant Stoneborn, a new tier 4 taunting minion. You might have missed Argus, but we have another taunting option. This one gives a minion +6 health and taunt. So it's not friendly, so you can taunt something in the shop, which is super nice. That means you don't necessarily need to have board space unless it's already on your board, or you need to play it from your hand. So that's a great option. And the big thing is it's also getting +6 health. And so it's going to be great for buffing things like Leroy out of range. If you want to give taunt to Manted, it's nice because you have that extra health to prevent it from getting sniped by a smaller unit. And it's also really nice with Arm. Arm, obviously really strong at buffing up the attack of units, but it can be a struggle to get that health up. Vigilant Stoneborn can help accelerate that health gain especially with a brand, as well as some of the new minions. The new 6-drop works really well with taunts. And you can sort of see a theme with Bristlemane and some more taunts added, and this card coming in. That taunt is a card that's going to be more, is a keyword that's going to be more impactful in Battlegrounds now. Ball of Minions is an insanely strong card. It's replacing Nightmare Amalgam, but it is also an all minion types card, so it will still be able to pick up poison and divine shield via Murlocs and mechs being in. However, it's Tavern tier 4, so there's fewer of them in the game, and this has an extra bonus. When you sell this, give it stats to a random friendly minion. Now, this isn't super impactful because it's a random 5/5 buff generally, but if you're playing it with Cooked Book, if you're playing it with elementals getting buffed, or you end up buffing it on your board and it's not something you want to keep around, for example, if there aren't Murlocs and mechs and you don't have that option to make it into a divine shield poison, maybe you just want to sell it for the stats. And another cool bonus thing, when you golden it, it actually gives the stats to 2 friendly minions. So not only are you combining all those stats onto the single unit, you're then getting it back out onto 2 different minions. And so it can be super powerful in the right comps if you are able to get a golden version just to add more stats onto your board. Interrogator Whitemane, this is a card that I would expect to get removed at some point because its effect is at the start of combat, you're giving the enemies opposite this taunt and they take double damage. This is perfect disruption against so many combo decks, but it can also be used to combo with Cleave, especially Wind Fury Cleave, by just taunting the middle and making sure that you get good value. Or at least giving yourself a chance to get good value, or trying to target something like Baron, Mama Bear, Soul Juggler, any of those units that you really need to stay alive. Whitemane presents a huge problem. And then of course they're also experimenting with a new mechanic, double damage. And this is maybe an experiment that's leaning towards eventually moving away from poison being the main way of dealing with hugely statted boards. However, I think that giving opponents taunt is a problematic game mechanic where so much of our ability to play the game and manage RNG is based on using taunt to sort of influence our combats. So there's a new tier 5 pirate, Vanessa Van Cleave. Vanessa Van Cleave provides scaling to all your pirates, so it kind of behaves like Eliza, except it's when it attacks only, not when any pirate attacks, but it's permanent stats. So if you have a board of pirates, this can be extraordinarily strong tempo, and even on its own, it is pretty strong tempo because on that first attack, it's going to be a 5/8 if it does get to attack, and it will continue to grow. If you have 2, they can start buffing each other as they attack. And again, obviously, if you have more pirates on board, it will buff them. So a really strong pirate tempo option on tier 5, or if you do miss out on those Hoggers or Tonys. On tier 6, we have the Walking Fort. This is also a really strong card if you have the right setup. If you have 4 taunts, this is going to be giving you plus 16/16 for free on your board. And 16/16 stats for free. We've seen the power of free scaling in the past. It's good. If you can make it happen, it's good. This is going to be really good with setups like double Deflecto, double Mechrel, all taunted, so that you're getting health on those units that don't normally get it, and just free scaling. Or any Divine Shields. You can now more consistently play taunted Quillwars with Divine Shields, just because there's more taunts, and we have that new taunt Quillwar giving you gems. And obviously, demons have a lot of taunts available, and so we might see this in demon builds along with Felbat to really amp up that passive scaling without needing to use your resources on scaling, and can use that instead to look for techs for the late game. And one of the last sets of things, the minion updates. So these are minions that already existed. Prophet of the Board is getting a bit of a rework. It's now a 2 attack, 3 health minion, but it has taunt. And the huge change is after you play a Quillbore, get a Blood Gem. It's not once per turn anymore. So your scaling on this is going to be pretty significant for only losing 1 attack. You can get a lot more gems, especially in the later stages of the game, especially in the mid game where you're able to cycle more Quillbores. Those gems are going to be pretty meaningful. And it has taunt now, so it synergizes with the new 3-drop. This is a pretty cool change. Not super overwhelmingly strong, but it is a much better source of gems than it was in the past, and gives it a little bit more staying power. It's also another small low tier taunt to act as a distraction taunt now that more minions might be getting just taunted, or if you want to protect some of your other bigger taunts or tech around something like Nadina or a Scallywag comp. And Terragosa is getting a small wording change. This wording change is only to protect it from keeping negative debuffs from the opponent, like Whitemane. Now Terragosa will only keep enchantments that occur on your end of combat, so only positive changes to buff Terragosa. As for the minion pool changes, Spawn of N'Zoth, Gem Splitter, Reef Explorer, Nightmare Amalgam, Nosy Looter, and Urel have been removed from the minion pool. So with the removal of Spawn of N'Zoth and Urel, that's why we see the buff your board quest get a little bit easier to accommodate that. Nightmare Amalgam obviously replaced by the ball. Gem Splitter replaced by the new Quillbore. Reef Explorer getting sort of replaced by Scout, which arguably Scout is much stronger, even though Reef Explorer was a battle cry. Reef Explorer was just really strong with Bran and for those cycling situations. Scout now it's a battle cry itself, but obviously has some pretty interesting options there. And then Nosy Looter getting replaced by Vanessa Van Cleef. Menagerie Mug has also been returned to the pool, so that's going to replace Urel. It's going to be permanent stats on the board, another battle cry, another neutral minion to replace Urel back in the form of Menagerie Mug. And there is one last change in the bug fixes, and that is that Evil Twin is now working with Khadgar. People didn't really know that it was supposed to work like that, and it was just based on the mechanics of the game, but this is a huge change. Evil Twin is super strong now with Khadgar. If you're able to make Divine Shield Poison units that you can summon multiples of now, or things like Deflectos where you can get a lot of resets and just reset all your Deflectos and have a really strong board full of Deflectos and resets with Khadgar. A pair of Khadgars summons, a huge board of stuff if you can get the right setup. So really cool change there. Overall, a lot of things to play around with. I think that Taunt and Armor are going to come back, especially with those Evil Twin quests and with the new Taunt minion, Taunt buffing minion fort, the Walled Fort, I believe it is called. The Walking Fort, sorry. Just a lot of free scaling that way. Some of the Quillbore stuff is pretty interesting. Obviously, Whitemane, a super strong tech card that is probably problematic, and Patient Scout, really, really crazy. The new updates to the heroes are really fun. Not enthused about the Jailer, but maybe Rakanushu will get some changes to spice Rakanushu up because it is a little bit redundant with the Jailer. Just in general, probably a little bit worse. And then, of course, the new quest, and there's a ton of new quests, and I'm so happy they added these. I've been asking for it for a while, so I'm glad they followed through and hit us up with these. Anyways, that's it for this quick condensed patch review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments that you'd like more, and like this video to show your support. If you want to catch our patch reviews and theory crafting live, be sure to check out our Twitch channel, PockyPlays. And until next time, peace.